and welcome to another episode of the Simply Connected podcast, your go-to show for discovering new connections through genuine, candid conversations. On this week's episode, we get to chat with Sophia. Sophia has been in the hospitality and events industry almost her whole life, and this week's episode focuses on all things events. And it's a really fun conversation where we talk all about curating the perfect event experience and what that looks like for guests who come to our events, and pushing the envelope and what it looks like for testing new event themes and ideas. And I said it already, but it's just a deep dive into the world of events. Hi, Sophia.
Hi, Lauren.
How are you?
I'm good.
Thanks so much for joining us today for an episode of the Simply Connected podcast.
It is my pleasure.
Let's jump right in together.
Okay.
I feel like this is always kind of the most hated question that I ask guests, but we got to start with it.
Okay.
Tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Oh, that is the worst question, but it's a loaded one. A little bit about myself. Well, I work in post-secondary for a profession. So I'm an event planner by trade. And so I've worked in various kind of roles. I teach in the event management programs at Algonquin College. I work in communications and event at Queen's University, and I have a side business that I do as well for socials and weddings and private parties and conferences. So professionally, that is what I do day to day. And personally, I live in Elmont, Ontario, so just outside of Ottawa. And during COVID, I bought an old, over 100 years old home that I thought was going to be a great idea. And I mean, in hindsight, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but I just wanted to find a cute little town. I grew up in Manotick, so something a little bit outside the city. I was kind of over city life. And so, yeah, that's where I spend most of my time outdoors. It's mostly like this really cool artsy outdoor community. So that's where I'll be when I'm not working. And yeah.
Fun. I have a few friends who live in Almont, and they say, I don't know if you've ever watched Gilmore Girls, but they say
Exactly.
It gives a very Gilmore Girls vibe.
That's why I had never been to Elmont. Well, I've been to Elmont, but I'd never spent a lot of time there. And I went to hike my dog one day, and I was like, this is where I'm going to live. And it was because it was like a Gilmore Girls kind of episode. And I was like, it's kind of like this quirky little town, but it's so beautiful. And like this like hidden gem outside the city.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Well, if you ever see Lorelai or Rory just like walking down the street, let me know.
Perfect.
I will drive there as fast as I can, and we'll pay them a little visit. But you said that you kind of work in many areas of the events industry. What made you want to get into events? Have you always been in events?
Great question. Yes, I've always had this desire since I was in high school, and you really don't know what you want to do. But I always I wanted to be an actress or I wanted to plan parties. And back then it wasn't really a profession. And so I would just do it, for friends and family. But I also grew up in the restaurant industry. So my dad owned a restaurant, and so did my grandfather. So like many different generations. So I think like hospitality was in my blood. And so for as long as I can remember, that was like the profession of choice. Before like the wedding planner and J-Lo, I definitely wanted to be an event planner, which was kind of cool.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
And did the acting ever go anywhere?
You know what? I majored in theater in university, which was hilarious. And everyone who knows me knows that I'm like pretty a shy person. So the fact that I even wanted to go in theater, but it was very quickly I realized once I was in the program that I wanted to be behind the scenes. So the whole acting on stage was not for me. And but I did some like extra work in movies. And I went to LA when I was a teenager, and did this whole like modeling acting thing, which was like interesting. People don't know that about me. And then I realized, great to see it,
Yeah.
but and now I just go and see plays and, love the theater kind of life on the side.
Yeah. That is crazy you said that, because I feel like I'm almost like looking in a mirror, because when I was really, really little, I wanted to be a lawyer, but I feel like that was like every kid's dream.
Yeah.
I was really big into like CSI and things like that. And I'm like, I'm going to be a crime scene investigator, not thinking that on a TV show they solve the mystery in an hour, and sometimes they never get solved. But when I was like 15, 16, I turned to wanting to be an actor and actress. And I got signed, and I did like background work and a little bit of modeling here and there. But woven into all that, I guess, was my love of events. And that started around the same time, where I was planning community events, like bottle drives, bowling tournaments, things like that. And the acting kind of fell by the wayside because, let's be real, like, it's Ottawa, you're not going to break into the industry here.
Yeah.
But the event stuck. And I planned events all through high school and into my post-secondary education, and then went to school for it, and
See?
am in the industry now.
It's a cool parallel because you're being taught to entertain, right? And then I feel like that's a crossover to what you do in events, just in a different capacity.
Yeah.
So I get it.
And I feel like...
I'm sorry. Let's just take one quick break.
Hi, friends. You might have noticed we've had some camera issues. We have solved the problem, and there will be no more issues with the camera going forward.
Oh, God. I don't know.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, sorry. Maybe just say technical difficulties. We're going back in. So.
Classic Sophia version.
He tried to get me to make a joke when I was filming the very first episode because we were here and there was construction going on.
Yeah.
And you could hear like hammering in the background. And he tried so hard to get me to just be like say your opening, be like, oh, and you might hear some like construction and hammering in this first episode, just like this podcast. The building we're in is under construction.
I love it. Did you do it?
I could not get it. I think we
no.
sat here for like 40 minutes.
Like, there's no joke, Ryan.
I'm just like sweating, and I'm like, this is getting worse.
I know. Do you like doing this? Like, are you comfortable? Like,
yeah.
it gets easier for you.
Like, it's been getting easier. Same with like listening to myself.
Yeah. Oh, I hear my voice. I'm like, Jesus.
Yeah.
Is that what I sound like? Oh.
I feel like nobody likes the sound of their voice.
No, it's deep in my head normally. Anyway.
And I feel like as it starts to flow, like the beginning always like feels stiff to me.
Yeah.
Because you got to get the conversation going.
Yeah.
But then once it's going,
it goes.
So.
There is some kind of weird thing where it's like it's not the same sound that you're hearing of your own voice.
Okay.
So it's everybody is that way, but as you're somebody who listens to your own voice more and more, you get used to that sound.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
Thanks. My coach.
Just listen to Ryan. Have him in the back of your head.
I know.
Be like, my voice doesn't sound like that.
It's not that bad.
Okay. I'm trying to think of a natural way to float back in. Because I honestly don't even know where we broke.
I know it was kind of just, I tried to do it in the middle of a spot.
I know.
Yeah.
We were talking about the Gilmore Girls. Almond. You were telling me about your career path, that you went to acting.
Oh yeah, that I got into events.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Two of
So
us.
we're just gonna segue out. So that's how I got into events. And then okay. So it's the worst part. Okay. So long career or career in events. You said that you kind of found your way into the events industry. Tell us about what you were like as a kid.
Oh gosh, this is like therapy 101 right now. All the wine and time. I was a really shy child. So, I mean, I don't remember this. I was too young, but my mom would say like stories where like to go to school and like, get dressed. It had to be like my mom had to really like pump me up and like get me out the door because I was just so deathly shy, which is like ironic because I wanted to be an actress. But I remember like, and my childhood too, we always laugh that I don't have like TV references or like movies is because we really spent so much time outside. Like we were like just those kids that played on the street with the neighbors, and it was like really nice. So I grew up in Barrhaven, and then we moved to Manotick, and that's where I went to high school. And Manotick was like a pivotal time, I think, in my childhood and development that I was like, that you kind of see your community grow in like full circle. And because it was such a small town, we had a really good group of friends. And we're still friends to this day, which is like great. And some people have already moved back to Manotick, like they just really wanted that lifestyle again. And it was a great childhood. We went like boating and wakeboarding and again, outdoor lifestyle. And it was really, really tight, like knit community. And then we all kind of just like, at that natural time after high school, we all went away to university. And so I went off to University of Toronto. So this like small town girl goes and has these big aspirations in Toronto. And that was kind of like the changing point. But like in school, I was like super social, we did all the things and all the extracurricular, but elementary, very quiet. Probably didn't say much, just so made up for it in high school.
Yeah. Hey? And did you say do you have siblings?
I do. I have 2 older brothers.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you go through high school with them?
I did. So we're, there's 3 years between us. And so like my mom had us bang bang. And so my oldest was 3 years. So he was older than me, obviously, but it was great. So if you had someone older in high school, like he was your protector. So I knew when I went to high school, like I was good. And then my middle brother, he's about a year and a half older than me. So we were quite close, which was nice. We had similar friend groups. And so I mean, to much dismay, like I wanted to date his friends. But other than that, it worked to my advantage. We're still really, all three of us are really close right now, which is really nice.
And from what you can remember, how would you say that like your personality changed from elementary school to high school? Was there something that kind of brought you out of your shell?
That's a great question. I don't know. I think it's just like time. I always joke like I'm the late bloomer, and sometimes I just need to like process and maybe it was like the really great friends that I made, or like you're just growing and you're becoming more confident. And I had a really strong-willed mom. Like she's like super independent and did things on her own terms and went back to school later in life. And so all those kind of values were instilled, I think, in me as her daughter. And so as I like developed and grew as a human, I think I was more comfortable in my skin. Like, you know, you're just an awkward teenager and, you know, unsure and all the things that are happening around you. But I think as I kind of grew up, I started to really like hone in on those values of my mom.
And did you carry, so the friends that you grew up with in elementary school that you talk about, were they the same friends in high school, or did you find a new kind of circle when you went into high school?
I found a new circle. So that was like, I guess that was like the trauma of that age. Not really, but so because I grew up in Barrhaven, so I did like kindergarten to grade 6 there. And so when we moved, it was my last year, grade 6. My parents would drive me back to Barrhaven every day so that I could finish off elementary school. And I remember that and being like, oh, okay, thanks, which was nice because I had a second pocket of friends that I still kind of like talk to this day, which is like interesting. And then the friends that I made in high school, I'm still obviously friends with now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I remember, because I grew up in Barrhaven too. Barrhaven, born and raised. Looking back now, it is so different from what it was in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, and the amount of kids that are there. But I went to elementary and high school there, and there are still a lot of my friends who, I guess similar to yours, who've moved back to Manotick. A lot of mine went to school and now have moved back to Barrhaven and are starting those next chapters and phases of their life with kids and families and jobs and things like that. And it's just every time I drive back there to kind of reminisce about what it was like to grow up in that area, and even driving by like my childhood house and things like that, it's just so surreal to still have some of the relationships that came from, I guess, high school and Barrhaven and carried with me into like university and college and now my adult life. And just to see them thriving, it's a really neat, I guess, form of connection to still have friends who saw me at maybe 6 years old and then 12 years old and then 16 and into my 20s. And I feel just beyond grateful to know that those relationships are still out there.
Well, they say like that's the real growth is when you have relationships that you can kind of go through life with. And like we all change, right? And if you can develop and grow together, like those are the lasting life friendships. And you've seen each other through everything. So at that point, they really know who the real you is as well, which is kind of cool.
And I think that's one of the most challenging things too, is being able to grow with your friends, right? And acknowledge the fact that they aren't going to be the same person they were at 16 or at 18 or even last year, but honoring the fact that they are growing and developing and taking on new hobbies and new jobs and new passions and partners and whatever it is, but being able to see them through that.
Yeah, for sure.
And so when you think about your friend group, whether it's the friends you grew up with or your colleagues or anything like that, what does connection look like for you? How would you define connection in your world?
Friendship is so important to me. I think that is like, for me, that's what like gets me ticking, you know? And it's funny because I have a bunch of different friend groups. You know, I have like the girlfriends I grew up with. I have people that I work with that I'm really quite close with now. And then I switched jobs, made new friends. And then there's people, you know, that I lived near and just like the various areas that I lived in. And those connections all mean different things. And so they all look very different. But I think the thing that brings us together is like the sense of like joy when we're together. And so it's that feeling where you can kind of pick up where you left off. You don't have to call each other every day or, you know, be with each other, you know, once a week. But it's that sense of we all are excited for where we're all going and what we've become and like, or currently where you are presently, whatever, we're each other's biggest cheerleaders. And so oftentimes, and I try to make this a practice where I call at least one friend a day. and we'll chat for like an hour. And I have this one friend that we'll call each other every day and, whatever. But we pick up the phone, and there's others that I text with. And, I have friends that live, all over Canada. And so it may look a little bit different, but the connection to me is caring, like putting the time and effort. And it doesn't mean that your circle is massive, but it can be curated and small, but meaningful. And I think that's the difference for me, for connection. That's like so important.
Yeah. And I think to your point, we touched on it in an episode or two ago about the fact that it's just making sure that the people in your circle know that you're there.
Exactly.
And I have a couple friends in my world where we don't necessarily have to talk every day, and we can just send a simple, hey, or how are you, or
exactly.
whatever it is, but there's no kind of natural beginning or ending to the conversation. It's just ongoing. We always know that that person's there.
Yeah.
And every now and again, it's just a check-in to see how
Yeah.
they are doing.
And it's like this vibration, right? Like I always think about friendships and like, are they serving me? Is it serving for them? But if you don't get off the phone or, receive a text and feel good, then maybe you have to reevaluate what that connection looks like. But as long as it's like, again, that positive like reinforcement, and like you're so excited for each other, and, the genuine milestones of life and where they're taking you. But that's, I think, the key.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's connection in your life. What does connection look like for you in the events world? Because I know connection is huge.
It's huge. Like when I teach events, this is my biggest thing that I tell the students, is that you're not just running around as the boss with the clipboard, and don't be that person. Nobody wants to work with that person. But you are really the connector for all the pieces. And so it's how you're presenting yourself and vice versa with others, but how you're working together and how you're collaborating. And to me, that's connection. So oftentimes when I'm planning events, I'm like, oh, I have this person. Oh, this person would be great. And it's like that Rolodex, but in a good way. It's these relationships that you formed. And to really put on a great event, you all have to be aligned. And what does that look like in different various aspects of your relationships with these vendors or your clients, etc. But that connection point really is driving the passion, the innovation, and the collaborative elements to the event. That's to me connection.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, all very important points. And so when you think about kind of what you just said, how do you go about maintaining those connections in the events world?
To me, it's all about being humble, and just your personality, I think, has a lot to do with it. And it's not a prescribed personality, but it's the willingness to be open and listening. And you don't have to be the expert, again, you're leaning on other people's expertise. But it's how you bring yourself forward and how you present yourself and how you carry yourself through an event or a project or whatever that may look like. And I say to the students, it's a very simple recipe. Like kindness goes so far. And I think sometimes it's forgotten in business in general, and putting people before the project. And at the end, if people enjoy working for you or working with you, then the project's going to come to life and they're going to do their job. And they're going to recommend you. So for my personal business, I don't have a website anymore. It's all based off of referrals. And that's the one thing that I hold most value to, because that means people have trusted me and they enjoy working with me, which is a plus, right? Mm-hmm. But to me, that's the best marketing you could probably ask for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like too, just you said it, but kind of just being appreciative and knowing that while you may be planning it or the event manager or whatever it is, you're working with a team.
Exactly. You're
You're working with supports, you're working with vendors, contractors, all things like that. And I think for me, that is such a huge piece of the puzzle in keeping those relationships as great as they are. And I think an old colleague that we both know did it many times, and it's something that I don't know if I took from her, but she pointed it out after I did it. But after every event that I run, I send an email to every person I worked with, mm-hmm. whether they're all on it or not. Sometimes it's separate emails, but just to say thank you.
Yeah.
To say thank you and to outline something amazing that they did to make that event a success, because I didn't do it alone. It was
we can't do it
effort.
alone.
No, we can't.
We literally can't.
We can't. And I feel like she said to me, or she emailed me back one day, she replied to one of the thank yous, and she's just like, I love that you do this. She's like, it's so important. And to me, it was just second nature, right? Because again, we can't do it alone. We need the support of these people. And for me, when I get a thank you, like that feels good. So I want to make sure everyone who I'm working with
Exactly.
feels good as well. And it's a little piece that's always stuck with me. And you might not be giving them the world, but you're just acknowledging the fact that
Exactly.
they supported you with that.
And it's their time, right? And their energy. And yes, people can do a job because they're being paid, but 100%, if you're kind and you're appreciative and you're supportive, and you treat people as equals, they're going to go above and beyond for you because they care about your success as much as the success of whatever you're planning.
Yeah. And it might just be me, but I feel like people who are working in the events industry, well, depending on what event you're working on, they could be long days, long hours, like
For sure.
a lot of labor, a lot of work. Everyone seems to love it. I don't think people have bad days. Yes, people get grumpy every now and again, but I don't think I've run into anyone in the industry per se that hates their job or hates what they're doing. Like even if I'm at a concert and someone's like loading in tech gear, they just love what they do. And it's so refreshing to see that.
There's something I think about building something from concept to completion that is like, it's fun. Like beyond everything else, it's you get to see your idea come to fruition. And I mean, I'm sure it's with a lot of different industries, but the event industry too, like it's your blood, sweat, and tears leading up. Then you're working 12-hour days or whatever that might look like. And at the end, I actually had some really good advice. They're like, just take a moment within the event and just like look around for a second and just like feel the energy, see your success, and just like celebrate in your mind, like a job, even if it wasn't perfect, it doesn't matter what a job well done looks like. And so I think that's what brings us joy. I'm a completion person. So when I see the end results, it's so I can understand seeing the full kind of like picture.
Yeah. And I think too, there's always, so I do that. I make sure to do that now
Good.
because there's some events that I walk into and I'm like, no, just take a moment because it has been 6, 8, 9, like 12 months of planning this.
Yeah.
And it's going to be gone in the blink of an eye. It's going to be gone in a day.
Exactly.
But just to stand in that space and to be like, wow, all these people are here because of something that like you created, that you brought to life. And it's such like an empowering and like magical moment to stand in that space, knowing that all these people are here for a specific reason.
Yeah.
Do you remember the very first event that you planned?
The very first. Actually, yes. It was a wedding. And it didn't go all that well, to be honest. It was kind of a hot mess. But I have to say, it was the best learning moment because I mean, I still remember it and I still remember all the things that went wrong and not to dwell on that, like it is what it is at this point, but you'll never forget, don't do that again, or like, fix this. But yes, I do remember. And I think that's like humble beginnings, right? We're not all experts. Even now I learned so much and I still make mistakes, but that first one was a doozy. Yes.
And I think too, good that you recognize that they're learning opportunities.
Yeah.
But I think too, when I talk to people sometimes after an event and I'm like, oh, all this went wrong, and I'm listing it and they're like, oh, like I didn't even
They
notice.
don't even notice. No, you know everything that was supposed to happen, but no, the outside guests, they don't know.
Yeah, like you didn't hit that like 201 mark. And it's just like, oh, like
they were like, well, what happened to 201? I was having a cocktail at the bar.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you're teaching,
Yes,
and you have your own side business.
I do. Yeah.
What are you doing there?
So it's interesting. I've dabbled in a bunch of different kind of variety of events. So I started off solely weddings, and although like I love weddings, they're great. I really wanted to do other things as well. So I did conferences in more corporate world, and private parties, which is like really nice. But the last wedding I did kind of mixed all those worlds together, which was like the most probably unique wedding that I've done. And they just understood the assignment in terms of like guest experience and curating like this dinner party outside of like what you'd normally have, 200, 300 people at a wedding. And it's like this mass production, which is like awesome. But like if you really want to pare it down and make it unique, you have to do something a little bit different. And so that was, in all the diverse events that I've done, that one was the kind of one that like blended all those worlds together of like having a dinner party, having a wedding, having a private function, a social, and ensuring that guest experience was impeccable.
Oh,
yeah.
That's awesome. And you like what you're doing now?
I do. So yeah, I work, I'm the director of communications and events at Queen's University, and it's a whole other ball game that I hadn't really tapped into. And it's more or less it's engagement opportunities, but it's also major funding announcements. So I hadn't dabbled in that world before, and I've learned a lot. but it's also a different lens that I can kind of take to all the other things I'm doing. But it's a high performing kind of industry.
What would you say, maybe in this role, but also in the events industry as a whole, is like one of your biggest challenges that you face?
It's convincing people that, this is what I'm like known for, but it makes me laugh, is you don't need to do the same thing you've done for the last 10 years. And like what, like, you know, a corporate event looks like doesn't need to be rinsed and repeat. And so my biggest challenge is bringing in this creative energy side that's like so outside the scope of post-secondary. And that's what like brings me so much joy, where I bring this like outside world and like convince them that this is the right event to do. And Lauren, let me tell you, it takes convincing. But when I get them there, they're so happy at the end result. And I was like, yeah, let's look at the outside world, bring it into this industry or into this like sector and do something completely different. And people are going to be shocked because like if they think about post-secondary events, like, let's be honest, it's more like government style where it could be a little bit like dull or like traditional. But when I do them, like that's not my style. So convincing them to see beyond what they've done for the last 10 years is a challenge sometimes.
Yeah, I can see that. And I feel like too, working in a similar field, trying to convince people of new ideas who have done something the same way for 5 to 10 years can be like pulling teeth sometimes. And it's great once you get there, but in order to get there, there's so many loopholes that you have to swim through. And I remember we just recently had an event, and I think last year, so in 2024, so June of this year, planning Ottawa's convocation ceremonies for the college, I had wanted to do something different, and that's hard to do. And I knew, I'm like, I want to do a balloon drop or I want to do a confetti cannon.
Oh, perfect.
And our venue hates confetti. So that was off the table right away, because the bill to clean that up between all the ceremonies was just not going to happen. Not going to happen. So I'm like, okay, fine. So we did try some new things this year, and it went great, and definitely learning opportunities for next year. But we tried it and people were happy with it, so we can build on that. But the event that we just had, it was a similar working group, and I'm like, let's try this again. I want a confetti cannon or I want balloons.
Second time's a charm.
And similar, like not everyone likes confetti, but people hate balloons more. So I'm like, well, confetti is going to be the way to go. So I just remember I got my wish. I got 4 confetti cannons, and we set them up in this room, and it was a surprise, so not a lot of people knew. So strategically placing the cannons and keeping people away from them was something we had to make sure we did. And then I told a few people, just because I was so excited that these were happening. And I just remember because I knew when it was going to happen. So just like moving to the middle of the space and standing there like ready to film this moment, but also wanting to be in the moment to like witness this happening. And I just remember the confetti going off and me being like, yeah, this is awesome. And the room was great. Like they were happy about it, but still they were kind of shocked, and it was just like pleasant clapping. There was no cheering.
You're like, where is the uproar of screams and like I'm at a concert?
Like, well, it is what it is. But
baby steps though.
Yeah, we got them, and we got like the feedback that came down. It was all positive, and
good.
It was a fun moment, and it'll be a memory. But I think it's just convincing people to take those steps and trust it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Exactly. But you have to try it.
Yeah. One of my favorite events that I still talk about to this day is we had an opening for some program. I can't remember what it was. And I just couldn't do the standard. I was like, no. So instead I hung food from the ceiling, like off of string. And so when people walked in, it like almost hit them in the face. And it covered the room. And as people came in, I handed them a pair of scissors. And so it was like that immersive experience. And I said, you have to cut down your food to enjoy the presentation. Like it was like your popcorn or candy or whatever that may be, like, you know?
Yeah.
And the amount of energy it like ignited within the room in that first, like, I don't know, like half an hour, because people are like cutting down food. Like they're like swifting through of what they like. They're like laughing. They're like, well, what is this? I've never seen food hanging from a ceiling, like in a formal setting like this. But to your point, it was like, when I had said that concept or that idea, people thought I was insane. They're like, Sophia, like, what are you doing? You know? And then as soon as I saw the reaction in the room, I was like, see, it, like, just listen for a second. And if you kind of do something outside of the norm, it's like, it's going to enhance your event, and people are going to talk about it long time it's over. I still get like, oh my God, remember when you did this crazy idea? And I was like, see, you're still talking about it.
Yeah. You're like, see, it was worth it.
Exactly. So Lauren, keep going for those.
Is there something that you've been wanting to try? A new idea that you've seen?
Yes. Okay, so I'm really obsessed with bringing the virtual and the in-person world together, and just having, like, where I work, like, researchers that are brilliant from all over the world. And so I want to do a panel discussion, but I want to have hanging TVs where the stools would be. So you have a mix of like people that are in person and people that are coming from like anywhere in the world just to be a part of this conversation, and blending those two formats. So visually it looks amazing on the stage. And then content wise is elite content, because again, there's perspectives, from all over the world that you normally maybe couldn't fly in, or scheduling, whatever could be an obstacle. But it would just be like a step forward to the future, where we don't always have to be in the same room at the same time, but we can still bring those connection points and that information through like just thinking outside the box of like, how can we bring groups of people together? And then using technology, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think technology is becoming even more kind of visible in events. Not so much like your Zoom or your Teams or whatever, but just using technology and all its capabilities, whether it's video walls or lighting or visuals and things like that. I think getting that full immersive experience is kind of where events are going, not so much like a sit down dinner anymore, but you want to really give them an experience of something.
Yeah. It's like you want them to walk in the room and think they're somewhere else. Like, just, give them an opportunity to escape the everyday and to be in the moment, and to that immersive experience. What you said is probably one of the most important words that I use when I'm trying to like articulate this new idea, or like get them to buy in, because it is more than just like someone at a front desk and greeting you and coming in and having a dinner or whatever that may look like. It's like utilizing, the screens on the walls or the lighting, or even like the volume of the music, whatever that may look like. And I always say too, having a curated speeches throughout. Like, so what does that like opening monologue look like? And maybe it's not somebody at a podium reading something, and it's bringing people in and utilizing, the screens or whatever that may look like. But an immersive experience with technology is the way of our future. I mean, COVID flipped our world upside down, but I almost think it was for the better from an events perspective, because it challenged us to think outside of the normal events that we were used to. They were successful and they were working, but they were very, in my opinion, narrow focused. It was only the people in the room. But to me, I'm now more about like, what does that global conversation look like? And how can we bring more people into this conversation at a greater scale? Well, you do that by opening up the ability for people to participate. And so if you just have people that are in the room, that's limiting you to the area that you're in.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of, you touched on this event, or this vision that you're kind of establishing. Is there an already established event that you dream to work on?
That already exists?
Yeah.
So that's the thing about me. There's never an example. I'm always creating these little ideas. And so it's funny, because I just introduced this new event concept at my day job. And it's interesting because this is a pivotal moment where we could execute this with the right budget, of course. So we haven't yet learned, but I keep probing in that idea again, like, not the first time, but the second time you ask. So I see it happening. It's the way of the future. So if we're not thinking like this, then to me, we're behind. So right now, no. But is there an idea coming? Yes.
So we'll watch for it.
We'll watch for it, Lauren. I'll send it to you.
We'll wait for that announcement.
Yes.
So two-parter, is there someone in the events industry that you look up to, or you would consider to be a mentor?
Honestly, no. If I'm going to be not in the event. So I draw my inspiration from non-event people, believe it or not. Like, there's obviously event planners I think that do amazing things, like Preston Bailey and David Chatera. Like, they're leading in the industry, and like their budgets that they work with is like enormous, and they're doing spectacular events. But where I kind of like am mentored is for influencers that are kind of outside of the scope of what I do. And like, so for example, it could be like home decor, it can be restaurants, it can just be a woman in leadership or whatever that may look like. And I draw into different things that they're doing and I incorporate it into the events that I have. So like from a mentorship, I think I have a variety of mentorships that kind of like help me build my visions in different ways.
Okay. So then the second part to my question, which I think you're kind of leaning into, is there someone, knowingly or unknowingly, who has helped kind of shape where you're going, both, I guess, personally and professionally?
Yes, definitely. From like a personal mentor, I've had someone in my professional life, but like from early on, which was like really nice so that I could grow. And she really guided me. And it wasn't just from like a professional, like you have to be this, you have to be the director, you have to do this or be a VP. Or it wasn't from a level setting kind of position, but it was more for like she always challenged the status quo. And she was like this badass like leader who just like, again, put people first, but really made sure that she was like getting what she wanted in a respectful, obviously, and professional way, but she did not back down. And I just like watched her over the years, and I would often talk to her about my personal life and like how I can grow as an individual and like, you know, how I can like accomplish those goals. And she gave me like really two pieces of great advice. And it was like, you really need to go after what you want. You can't just take a back seat, and no one's going to pave that way for you. So if you think that you're going to sit here and just like work hard and get a raise and like a job promotion, no, like you have to paint your own way. And I like really loved that. And she also, and that's where the kindness and everything else comes, she really did put people first. Like she was a boss of mine for a little bit, but she showed emotion. And like we all laugh with my friends that sometimes they think I'm emotionless and I'm not, but she really taught me that people do matter. And sometimes I forgot that early on in my career where I was just like, go, get the job done. And having that balance was super powerful. And that's been like my guide. And I often ask her for advice, like, what would you do? And she's just a great soundboard. Yeah.
I think that's hard too. Sometimes we forget, whether they're leaders or supervisors or bosses, that they do have emotions too, right?
Totally.
And sometimes they're not always great at showing it because they are maybe approaching it from that more leadership perspective.
Yeah.
But when they can be a little bit more vulnerable and open to maybe people they're mentoring or leading in not only the workplace but in life in general, just to remind them that no, it's okay to have those feelings, and it's okay to like ask questions and learn and make mistakes. So she never, what I witnessed her from afar, she never got mad at people for making mistakes. It's and she would say that like, I'll never be upset with you, but if you keep doing it, like what are you doing? But like that's just a part of the game, you know. Just that's life. And so for you personally, how do you go about kind of maintaining, I guess, your life on a day-to-day basis? Working in events is hard. You're already very busy. How do you look after yourself in this industry?
Well, I'm just starting to figure that out, to be honest. I'm at a point in my career where sometimes I look in the mirror, I'm like, oh, you look tired. And I didn't have a lot of hobbies. So because I was so work focused and I'd go out with friends. Like that was, a social life was fine, but I didn't have a lot of hobbies. And so now I'm just kind of shifting to owning my time a little bit differently and having boundaries. And I was not a boundary. I was a yes person. I'd be like, yeah, let's do this, you know? And so, but unfortunately that was a toll on me, and I was just exhausted. And so, and you see that in your personal life, you know, and, you know, being, you know, who I am now and like, what do I have with like all that I've spent so much time on my career, which is like, I don't regret any of it, but like, it looks a little bit different for me now. So I'm now pausing and saying, okay, well, what do I want to do with my free time? Like, do I want to go to a yoga class? I just did pottery over the weekend. And it was interesting because I mean, it just happened, but I was just like, oh, it was so nice to have those 2 hours to like just do something outside of the everyday norm that I'm so used to, and just take a moment just to be like, I don't know, like make a pottery of something and just take a moment for myself. So that's what I'm learning now. Again, late bloomer theme throughout. It just took me a little bit longer to figure that out, that you need time for yourself. You can't keep at this pace forever.
And will you go back to pottery?
I mean, yes, I really enjoyed it. It just takes a long time. Like I have no patience. So I want to make the big bowl now. And I could barely make something on Saturday. But no, I liked it. It was good. But it's really important, Lauren.
And so what would you tell, learning this now, what would you tell the students that you're kind of bringing up into the industry?
Patience.
All the eager ones who want to like hit the ground running.
I know. It's because when I started, the person I worked for was like, go travel, go do all these things. I still did all those things, but like they took like months off to travel. But I was so like business focused, you know, when I opened up my business. I don't know if I would do anything differently. I think what I would tell them is patience is really important. I was so eager to just be successful, but not from like a monetary value, just like to really own that industry and that trade, that I think looking back, I spent a lot of time working and long hours. So patience is key, that you don't have to grow so fast. You can kind of like look around, play, you know, do some pottery. The balance,
yoga class.
Exactly. The balance is important. But I'm also like not one of those people that, and there's no judgment here, but like I balance is huge. But if you really love what you do, like, and that's kind of how I feel. It's not always just work, you know, it's also a lot of fun in there. So yeah, the younger ones, I don't know. I'm probably not the mentor for them where I'm like, still work hard. But it's the patience and the balance needs to be waved in for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, picking an industry like events is so broad, right? Like you even touched on the beginning, having like the hospitality component to it.
Exactly.
I think it's important to remember that it's also okay to dabble, and
100%.
you might not know right away what area of this industry you want to work on. Like for me, I came out of my schooling and went right into like the rental side of things.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that's fun, but nope, not for me. And then I went into weddings, and again, I was like, oh, fun, okay, but no, not for me. Like too many bridezillas. And then I moved into not for profit, and again, that was fun because for me, that's what I grew up on. I was always raising money for charities. It was just near and dear to my heart. But even after a while too, like not sustainable. And so then moving into more like corporate side of things, and then higher ed, it's okay to move. I'm still in the industry, but it's okay to keep trying.
For sure. And you just don't know where the path is going to take you. So like, and maybe that would be my advice. Just like keep all of your options and doors open, you know, like don't just be so focused on one area that you're not going to, you know, see another. Like I never thought I'd work in post-secondary, to be honest. I was like private industry all the way. And then I look now back in my career and I was like, oh, this all makes really great sense, you know? And again, you can create the job you want with like whatever industry you're in. So yeah, there's so many different things you can do.
Yeah, so many stepping stones too. And I said it, but starting in rentals, like now I can tell you what size linen you need for that table, but it all just kind of
transferable.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And so we talked about how you go about building your connections and things like that. Let's lean into the community aspect of it, because community and events kind of go hand in hand, and how you find those people and you bring people together. So we're going to go with 2 questions here, but what does community look like to you? And how do you find your community outside of events first?
So community to me, it looks like a supportive group of people, if I'm going to like label it within like individuals. And it can be all different walks of life, and it doesn't matter what you're doing. But it's almost like the sisterhood. And again, it does not have to be female, but I call it a sisterhood regardless. But it's where you can lean on people for support and help, and vice versa. Like you're looking out for one another. And to me, that is like the definition of community, where, you know, like you can go and you talk to your neighbor, and, you know, like there's this accessible, ease to it, which I think is really important, but it's definitely a positive and supportive environment. And like, that's what like community would be to me. And how I seek it outside, it's like the superpower I have, and I don't mean this from an ego way at all, but people are like drawn to me and tell me things for whatever reason, and it makes me laugh because I see it with my mom when I was younger, and I used to roll my eyes. Oh, this next person's like talking to her at the grocery store, like, can we just buy what we need and leave? And now I'm seeing it to me like later in life, and I think the important part there is how I seek it out is I'm choosing to be involved with these individuals, and to what we talked about before, it doesn't have to be all the time or whatever that looks like, but it's when I'm looking for it, it's because we've shared this connection or this passion, or maybe it's just like, I don't know, we just like each other genuinely and enjoy spending time together. So I'm constantly looking for those people that maybe match the same energy that I have, and I think that's the piece that's really important, because you can seek out a community, but realize maybe that's not the fitting community that you're looking for after like hanging out or observation, whatever that may look like. So energy component is really important.
Yeah, I think energy is huge, and it's palpable too, right? In almost any scenario that you put it in. And I think you said it perfectly. And we're seeing community now in events, especially with, I'm going to say it, with the Taylor Swift era. Like you're seeing that community come out in droves, and just the sisterhood and the girlhood and the celebration that comes from that. But you see it in other things too. Like I've been seeing a lot of Coldplay concerts, similar to Taylor Swift, but just a different, I guess, concert. Yeah. But the community that comes out to that. And so when you're curating or building an event, how does the community aspect play into how you develop that event?
That's probably the most important part to me, is when you're developing the event, it is the igniting of the five senses. And this is where I think I've been to a Coldplay concert, but not a long time, but the Taylor Swift era, like this is this immersive experience we're talking about, where they're like sharing these friendship bracelets, they're coming together. It's a really positive experience. They feel like they're friends with Taylor. Like she's built this relationship with her fan base that is like this powerful force. And I think the same thing is kind of translated to events. So when they come, they want to feel a part of this process. And I always say it comes down to like this two-way communication. If you're hosting events and it's this one way of just like talking dialogue and talking at you, no one's engaged. No one, like, it's not memorable. No one wants to come back, It's very like, it's a one-way kind of version of thinking. So if you can bring in these elements where people are, talking to each other about something, or there's like this igniting of the five senses, and so there's this like overwhelming sense of emotion, and I think it does come down to emotion. If people feel a part of something and like they belong, and that's usually at the forefront of my thinking when I plan events. Like, you want people to want to stay, and you want them to come back for more. And so if I can build that experience out for you in all different ways, or whatever that may look like for that event, but ultimately at the end of the day, if you have a memorable experience, if it's a positive experience, that to me is like they found their niche, they found their community, and they'll want to come back, I'm hoping, and build from what you've like established or developed. Mm-hmm.
And you said it too, it's kind of evoking that emotion in them, right? And you want it to be positive, but you want them to feel something, and you want them to take that feeling with them, so that when you have another event or something similar, they're like, oh yeah, like I want to feel that way again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then they have a shared experience amongst others, and if they can share that experience with the person they sat beside, or like follow, find them again on LinkedIn or whatever that may look like, there's that shared experience that no one will know unless they were in that room. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a really cool sense of community too.
Yeah. I was just at a concert a few weekends ago, and I went by myself.
I love it.
Drove all the way to Buffalo by myself for this concert, and I knew it was one that I couldn't miss. It's one of my favorite artists, and it was just, I'm going. Yeah. Everyone thought I was crazy, and they're like, you have to bring someone with you. And I'm like, no, I'm just gonna go.
I'm with you.
This is what it is. And I remember going. I had seen them once before, but it'd been a few years, and I was so excited. I bought my ticket. I was super close, because for me, I have to be close. Like I can't do 300s. And I remember like getting in there, sitting down, and just like waiting. And the person who was sitting next to me came in a little bit late, but she was there for the opener, and sat down. We got to talking a little bit. She had come alone, and I found out that she was from Brampton. So
cool.
A couple hours from where we are now. And I was like, oh, like what are the coincidences? And opener came on, like we stood up. She was enthralled in the opening act, and you could see that she was just so excited to be there. And I could see it on her face, and it was one of those moments. And then similar when the band came on, for me, it was just like an overwhelming sense of just like joy and gratitude and just happiness that I cried. I cry for everything. Like I cry at like the Christmas
Lauren's
commercial.
The fangirl in the front with her sign
sobbing. I didn't make this. I was going to, but I was like,
what band was it?
Little Big Town.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Nice.
So like huge fan. But I just remember at the end of the concert, we talked after the opener, but then we didn't talk during the actual show. And we kind of just like looked at each other, and we could both see that joy on like each other's faces for different reasons. Yeah. And we like said, oh yeah, great to meet you, blah, blah. We exchanged like socials and things like that. And I don't know if we'll stay in touch, but it was like two forms of connection that night. Like connection
sure.
to self and art and music and passion, but connection to like a new friend who I found in community.
Yeah.
And it's just like being there as a participant. Yes, I did go into it with like event eyes, being like, well, they could have fixed
You
this.
never look at events the same.
But at the same time, it's like, well, this is what I want to give people. And this is why events mean so much to people.
Yes. And I love the fact that you went by yourself, because I think when you eliminate all the distractions, you know, of like having friends or comfort beside you, you know, or your phone, because like everyone's inclined to look at their phone when they're alone, because for whatever reason, if you could just put yourself in that, it does open opportunity for you to talk to your neighbor and like, oh, you're from Brampton, like what are the odds, you know? Yeah, it's just neat. And then experience something like just by yourself. There is a beautiful thing about that. You don't have to answer to anyone.
Yeah.
You can come and go as you please. And yeah, but
I was on my own schedule that whole weekend.
Yeah,
it was great.
but like, and then you experience something and you'll never forget her. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. It was a great moment. So I guess still thinking about that and building a community, how does social media and marketing play a hand in establishing, I guess, connection and community through events?
Yeah, this is a tough one because there's so much negativity around social, right? And how we're attached to our phones and to the messaging all around us. And I get that. Like there's obviously capacity of how you use it. But to me, it is one of my main forms of connecting with ideas and inspiration. And there are like a couple influencers that I really value. And it's not just from what they're selling, because I get like it's a marketer's dream, but it's a pretty brilliant business tool if you think about it. And I don't know if you've ever heard of her, Jillian Harris. And so what Jillian's selling, like it's all great, like, but it's not the only thing I've ever seen on social, right? But where I think she's like a mastermind beyond it, do you notice how her family's all integrated into this business? So now she's got like a cousin Tori that's like selling stuff, and then her other cousin's doing hair, and they're all in different industries. And I think it's so cool that they've like come together as a family, but they're all doing different things, but how they sell it is like, it's really, really powerful, and they're killing it. But what I get from it is like, I'm scrolling these people that are outside completely what I do, but their ideas, now I'm looking at different trends and informing myself, or like even like their style of like what they're getting, or, you know, how they're showing whatever, all the free stuff they get. But again, it's just like, to me, it's just like, it's really cool for idea setting. And that's primarily what I use it for. But yeah, I don't really use Instagram. It's nice to see friend stuff like that. But I do use it from a business perspective. I like either buy things on there, or I follow different restaurants or influencers that I really enjoy. And it's not the event planners necessarily that I'm looking at. It's people totally outside the scope, and that I'm just like generating ideas from of cool things that they've thought of.
Yeah. How does it play? So idea generating for you, how does it play, I guess, in like, how do you go about marketing and sharing your events or the events for your job?
Yeah, it's, I mean, for my job, I mean, we have a whole social like media like job that's what they do, right? And so, and it's curated to that to where I work. For me personally is much different. I do, like, I obviously have like an Instagram account that, like, you know, I have this like curated grid. It's like your highlight reel or whatever that may look like. But it's funny because I don't often post a lot about my events, and I've used it more for like my love of travel or like concerts or whatever that may look like. And when I do post about events, it like blows up. And I find it's really interesting to me, because I was like, oh, I need to do this more. But I actually like that I don't, because that when I do, all of a sudden people are paying attention. And funny enough, I often leads to jobs, which like is like, it just like makes me laugh, because I was like, oh, is this like the marketing that I should be doing? Is this my strategy? I don't know. But it's yeah, I'm kind of branding myself this year. I'm redeveloping like what I want to do in the next kind of step of my life, and what that looks like in the events industry. So this is a time I'm really thinking about, like, how am I presenting myself on social, and what does that look like? And it is curated. I don't care what anyone says, you know, obviously. But I think you can do it in a really thoughtful way. And that's why I really like the Jillian Harris, because they're just normal humans. And I don't know if you follow, and there's like pros and cons against following Gary Vee. He's an influencer. Anyways, but his biggest thing is like, just go online and present yourself. And funny enough, when you do that, people do want to listen. And I think as long as you do it in a thoughtful way, it can be successful for you.
Mm-hmm. I think too, sometimes that's like one of the scariest steps too, is just
100%.
presenting,
I haven't done
like
it.
putting yourself out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, what do you, like, I keep thinking, well, what do they want to hear me talk about? You know, like, what does someone care? But I do think everybody has their own niche that they can present. And depending on where you want to take it, because there are people that I follow that, you know, I've just like went to high school with, or I've seen in, you know, the community or whatever, and their story is really cool and I am invested, and they're just an everyday person. Right. And so, yeah, it's how you use it, because I've seen it, to my opinion, how it's been misused. So I don't want to do that. But I think if you don't talk about what you do and your passion, how's anyone going to know about it? So I could be like, oh, I'm so humble, I'm going to just sit here and like, you know, but I think that is doing yourself a disservice. It's okay to share.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think too, it's okay to share, and it's also important that other people know and learn from you. And
Exactly.
I feel like if you're trying and experimenting and doing all these great things, like, why keep it to yourself?
Exactly.
Why not share these cool ideas or photos or videos or whatnot? And I think too, it just goes to show that like people tend to view you in a way that you don't view yourself, if that makes sense. And I remember last year they asked me to present on a topic at work, and I was like, me? Why? Like, no, I've done this once and you're asking me to talk about it.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, like, you have some good insights, like, people will listen. And I'm like, really though? And they did, which surprised me. And it was a very humbling moment, because for the longest time I was like, no, I don't have anything to say.
But you have lots to say, Lauren.
Apparently
you now have
I
a
do.
podcast.
Apparently I do. I'm
Yeah.
just learning that I love to talk.
Yeah. No, it's I think it's confidence as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that comes with age, and I think we're all still learning it. And yeah, it's just I think it comes down to just believing in yourself. And I know that's kind of cliche, but it's just like, as you grow and as you develop and as you mature, it may come more easily.
And so when you look ahead, doing this work now that you're doing, where do you see yourself going, and where do you see events going?
It's funny. I have this vision, and you might think I'm crazy, and I like don't tell people often, but here I'll tell you in your podcast.
So the world can know.
The world can know my vision. There is something more for me, and I keep saying this, and I can't figure out what that looks like. And so, like, to my employers, don't worry, I'm not going here, but like, there is something, I can feel it. And there's like, whether I'm like talking on a stage or something, like, it's like I haven't really gotten there yet, but I can feel it coming. So like, I think that's what this next stage is. It's just like figuring it out and how to get there. And then honing in on my experiences of life, and, you know, taking my late bloomer approach and like sharing that with the world. And yeah, there's something there. I don't know what it is. It's undeveloped, Lauren, but there's something coming. I can feel it. And then in terms of like for the events industry, I'm just going to keep pushing the boundaries. Like, it's just in my blood that I just, I don't ever want to do status quo. So as long as I can keep being creative and like trying some crazy things, I'll stay in this as long as it like keeps driving my passion and joy.
Well, it's ever changing, right? So
It is. Well, that's the thing about this industry that's really cool. And it's not the same, you know, day to day. Every day looks a little different with its own challenges and perks. And yeah, we really are in a really cool, thriving industry that's only going to get better.
Yeah. And I will say to your comment that something's coming, I know that feeling. Because I've been sitting with it for the last 2-3 years.
Yeah.
And which is why I like the side hustle and the podcast and things like that. I'm
Yeah.
like, there's just something bigger, and I don't know what it is. I can't see it, but I can feel it.
Yes. It's that in your stomach,
yeah.
right? You can feel it. And even talking about it, like, I'm not emotional, but it makes you emotional.
Yeah.
You're like, it's coming.
There's something coming.
Yes.
And people are like, what? And I'm like, I don't know. But when
I
it's
can't
here,
tell
I
you.
will know.
Exactly. And then you'll all know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you'll all be the first to know.
Exactly. Well, then keep listening to that, because, and oftentimes when you're dabbling in so many different things, and I don't know if you get this as well, they're like, oh my God, you're so busy, you're doing all these things. But I think it's because we're just like, we're paving that way. And we're just making room and learning different things to get us to where we need to go.
Yeah. It's that busy comment. I hear it all the time from friends, family. Oh, you're so busy.
I get it too.
And I'm like, well, I just like to do things.
That's what I say.
Yeah. I like to try. Curious, do you follow astrology at all?
I love astrology. Yes.
Okay, quickly. What's your sun, moon, and rising?
Oh God. Okay. That I don't know.
Okay, your sun sign though. Like, what's your?
Oh, like my Cancer? Like my zodiac sign.
Yeah, your zodiac.
Okay. Yeah. Is that my sun sign?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's Cancer.
Okay. Do you know your moon and your rising?
No.
No.
Can you tell me what it is?
I'd have to look it up.
Oh, okay. Like it's a thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
No, but I'm always looking
Okay.
for like who you're matching with and how you're working with
Yeah.
others, and like and it oftentimes it has to do with your energy and your zodiac signs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but tell me what that all means.
Okay. Well, I need to look up your chart, so we'll do
Okay.
that after.
Okay.
But then curious, have you ever looked up your human design?
No.
Okay. Because I'm getting really strong. So I'm a projector.
Okay.
And there's a whole bunch of research that goes into that, but there's essentially 5 categories. There's manifesting generators, which is the biggest group of them. There's generators, projectors, and reflectors. So sorry, I lied. There's 4.
Okay. Perfect.
4. Reflectors only make up like 1% of the population. They're very rare. But I'm getting projector vibes from you.
Okay.
And me being a projector, I'm a projector with a 3-5 kind of lineage. And the 3-5 is the great like life experimenter. We're meant to like dabble new things.
Okay.
And then projectors are meant to lead the pack, like bring their
Very
ideas
cool.
forward. So I'm very curious because essentially similar to your astrology, like your chart there, your human design is, I'm like preaching this right now, but like,
I love this.
it's
I'm like, read
a
my tarot
literal
cards.
like blueprint as to who you are. And when I
Okay.
got this blueprint, like this map of who I am, it's like 80 pages long. And when I read it, I'm just like, wow, this is me in a handbook. Like if I could have given this to my parents growing up, being like, this is how I operate,
Yeah.
like things would have been totally different.
Very cool.
So I'm going to look up your...
So you're going to have to give me, so when I say
Yeah.
I'm into astrology, I just know that I'm a Cancer. That's
Okay. We'll look up the rest after and
Okay,
we'll go
perfect.
from there.
Okay.
Okay. So just before we wrap up today, we're going to go through like a few rapid fires just for fun. Give listeners a few more things. So what was the last movie or TV show you watched?
I'm watching this great, and I'm not a TV person, but it's called Shrinking. Have you heard of it?
No.
Oh, it's so good. And I don't know how it's like my partner downloads it, so I don't actually know where it lives. But it's with what's his name? Harrison Ford? Yeah, Harrison Ford. And he's amazing. It's about these like obviously
It's on Apple.
is it on Apple?
Yeah, Apple TV.
As soon as you said it, he nodded. He was like, yeah.
It's so good. It's the writing is amazing. It's like it takes me a lot to watch TV. So when I do, like you have to like really entertain me. And it's Lauren, you have to watch it. It's so funny. It's kind of like inappropriate, but then there's also like sad and like it's like funny. It's like a mix of emotions in a half an hour, and it's only 30 minutes, so it has my attention.
Okay.
That's the
Sometimes
key.
I need that. I need like the 25 to 30
Yeah,
minutes.
don't give me an hour. I'm not.
No.
I can't do it.
I either fall asleep or I start scrolling.
Me too. I know. Our attention. Yes.
Especially now that it's getting darker, I'll add it to my list because I'm starting to watch movies and TV shows again.
I
so.
know. It's the winter blues.
Yeah, it's like the
where we just, like,
hibernation.
yeah, exactly.
What was the last book or podcast that you listened to? Book you read, podcast you listened to.
I wrote this down because so there's something you need to know about me. I am the worst with names, or remembering things. Like just anyways. So it's called Buy Back Your Time, but it's Dan Martell. Okay. So it's again, just like understanding how you spend your time and with who. Anyways, it's really cool. Someone recommended it to me and I've started it. It's really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's a book.
It's a book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's obviously not fictional. It's nonfiction. Yeah. It's like self-help in a good way.
Okay. That's why I love chatting with people because I'm always like adding things to my list. And,
This one
and I
is
do
good.
end up reading them because I feel like there's a reason people mention them. So.
Yeah. It's how to own your time, Lauren.
Okay.
For busy people, this is important.
Check that.
Yeah.
If you could have a superpower, what would it be?
I thought about this. And I think, and it made me laugh because it's to our busy comment. If I can be in more places at one time and fast, because I live in Elmont, everything is 45 minutes away. And I just want to be everywhere that I need to be. I think that would be my superpower, that I could just like leave this room and be back in Elmont or be in the city or whatever.
You can't just say be right there because you got 45 minutes.
45 minutes. Anyone knows me now, they're like, she'll be here in an hour.
And I feel like we talked about it a little bit, but who inspires you?
There are many people that inspire me, but if I can make it general, because like I have my mom, but I think all of these things kind of make up what inspires me, and it's just a really strong individual, and that comes with all different things. It doesn't mean you can't be emotional or you know you have to always be you're at your best. That's not what I mean. But someone who's not afraid to go after what they want and like has the courage just to kind of tackle whatever is in front of them. That's like that type of person. There's many of those people in my lives. They inspire me because in the moments that you feel like, oh God, how did this happen to me? Or, where am I at in my life or whatever that may, I just like to take a pause and I just like think about like, no, like this is just like a moment in time. It will pass. And if I'm looking at like what has come before me, they've kicked some ass. So it's you're going to make it out on the other side too.
Yeah. And then embodying those elements that they bring.
Yeah.
If you could have dinner with one person, living or dead, who would it be?
Okay, so I thought about this and I laughed because I'm pretty sure like, should I pick like some historian or like celebrity? And it actually came down, which is like, it popped in my head, it was odd to me. And it was, so my grandfather, one of them, I grew up with my grandparents. They lived with us, except for my grandfather on my dad's side. And he died when I was like 5. And I still remember his funeral. I'm like, what do you remember when you're 5 years old, right? And so, and then what I learned about him was so amazing. Like he immigrated from Greece and he came over. He actually went to Chicago first, did some like funny stuff there. It was probably not meant for your podcast, but I was like, what? And then came to Ottawa and was self-made. And this is the part that I love, like, bought into real estate. He actually owned the Lafayette downtown, like a famous bar. And like, so like this story of this man is like incredible. But I never got to know him or like understand like how he got here or like, what he did to like do everything he accomplished. Anyway, so I would love to have dinner with him just to like be like, how did you like create that empire? What did you do?
I feel like that would be a really special dinner.
It would be. I feel like there is like my other grandparents, amazing, obviously, but there's just like, there's something about this man. And I see it in my dad, like this entrepreneurial spirit. And then I see that come a little bit in me. And I was like, we have him in us. Like, there's so many questions I would ask him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aw. And if you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
I think just be easier on yourself. I was so looking back and I was so hard on myself. And I just think back, just like, it's all going to be okay. Just relax. Yeah. I mean, still work hard and do all the things you need to do, but just, I'd probably be a little bit more kind to myself at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be okay.
It'll be okay. Everything's gonna be fine. It's not perfect.
Look where you are now.
Exactly. Yeah. You just don't realize that when you're younger. Everything is a catastrophe. But like, stop focusing on the future. Just like be present in the day.
Yeah. Well, final question.
Okay.
So we have the Simply Connected playlist that we like to add songs to every now and again, and we like to ask our guests what they're currently listening to. So if you could add a song to the Simply Connected playlist, what would it be?
Okay, I have the perfect one for you. Have you heard of the band Camp?
I don't think so.
Okay, so this is like indie band. I like fell in love with them. So a friend of mine recommended, she's like, it's the best dinner party music. And I was like, oh. And so anyway, so I started listening. So one of my favorite songs is Vagabond. And so you have to, anyways, it's a great album. And that's my favorite song. But yeah, Camp, great band.
Camp, okay.
Mm-hmm. Not a lot of people know about them.
No, I don't recognize the name, but I'm gonna check them out. Like,
yeah.
I love music. I listen to music all day, every day. So
good.
Tomorrow when I'm working away, I'll
add that to your playlist.
Yeah, I'll add it. Okay, well, that's all of our questions.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh my gosh, I had fun. Thanks for having me.
It was an absolute pleasure to have you, and hopefully we'll talk soon.
We will. Thanks, Lauren.